Alright guys, welcome back. The terms do until and do while are concepts used in programming languages to control loops. A do until loop is similar to a do while loop. Okay, so a do until loop is a loop that continues to execute until a specified condition becomes true, and a do while continues to execute while the condition is true. They're exactly the same. Right? Keep that in mind. I'll show you some examples later on. Okay, but one thing you should note though is that anytime when you deal with the do while or the do until loop, you have to make sure that you have a way for the loop to stop. Okay, you don't want to end in an endless loop. Okay, so that's why for example, right, if you're looping through a range of cell, you want to increase the iteration, right, so that eventually the loop reaches a point where it's able to stop. Okay, and also you have to remember that like the for next and for each loop, the do until and do while loop have the luxury of exiting the loop, right? So suppose if you come across a condition where you want to exit the loop, you could use the exit do command. Okay, so that's about it on loops that you have to understand as far as the theoretical concept is concerned, right? Do while, do until, they are exactly the same. Okay, you have to make sure that you have a way to stop the loop, right? And that usually requires some kind of counter and iteration, but that's not a mandatory requirement though. Okay, but as long as you have a way to make sure the loop stops, it's fine. Okay, and the exit do is that whenever you as you are in the loop, you encounter a condition where you want to exit the loop, you're able to exit the loop. Okay, so let's dive right in and try out some examples. Okay, in the first example, we will explore the case of a do until loop. And what we're going to do here is that we're going to run a loop that runs through a range until it reaches a blank cell. And it's going to exit the loop as soon as it reaches a blank cell. Okay, and for that, I'm just going to have I equals to 1. Okay, that's going to be the initial I value. Then we're going to do the do until loop. So for that, I'm going to say do until sheet 1, and I'm using the code name because the macro and the worksheet are on the same workbook. Okay, I'm not using the tab name. Equals to blank, and then I'm going to have I equals to I plus 1, right, as we move to the next cell to check if it's a blank, and then we're going to run the loop. Okay, so what this loop is basically doing is that on the first iteration, it's going to check if range A1 equals to blank. If it's not, it's going to continue executing until the cell comes to a blank value. Okay, and then it's going to exit the cell. So what I've written here, I could also express it using the do while loop. Okay, and I'm going to dim I as long. I is going to be 1, and we're going to do the do while. So I'm going to say do while sheet 1 dot range A and I dot value. Instead of saying equals to blank, I'm going to say we're going to run this as long as it's not blank. Okay, so they mean exactly the same. Okay, and then I'm going to run the loop. Okay, and as we are looping through this range, we could also exit the loop, right? So I could write something like this: if sheet 1, so if we come across a value that where we want to exit the loop, we have the liberty of exiting the loop, as it is in the case of the for each and for next loop. Okay, we are able to exit the loop. Then I can say if it's reached, if we come across the value 150, then we can just exit the loop. So we use the word exit loop. Okay, that's about it. Okay, so in the next example, I will show you a case where the positioning of the while, right, could significantly influence the code. Okay, so the while and until could either be placed at the top, right, after the do, or it could be placed at the bottom, right, on the same sentence where you have the loop declaration. Okay, and I'll show you exactly what I mean when I say that it can influence the code significantly. Okay, For that, I'll just say do while 2. Okay, and this is applicable for both the until and while case. Okay, I'm just going to dim x input as variant, and then I'm going to have some value equals to 25, and then I'm going to do while x input equals to empty. So we're going to run this loop while x input here is an empty, right? So right away you'll be like, you know, something is wrong, and you're right. Okay, you're right. But I'm gonna let's just write this. Okay, we're gonna have an input box. Okay, enter a value, and then I'm just gonna have end it with the statement loop, right? So you'll be like, x here has some value, so we are asking this statement is basically to run the loop while it's empty, right? But x input initially it's not empty, right? There is some value assigned to it, so we're not going to be able to enter the loop. Therefore, this loop would never be executed. And you're right, you are right. Okay, so if I go and I try to run this loop, the loop is not running. Okay, the loop is not running because x input has a value, and we have specified that this loop is to be run while it's empty. Okay, so for that, what I can do is that instead of having it at the top, right? Instead of having it at the top, the while statement, instead of having it at the top, the condition, I could have it at the bottom, right? So now what's happening is that x input here is 25. And then we enter the loop. We are able to enter the loop because we don't have a condition. Okay, the condition is placed at the bottom. Okay, and this is applicable. You can have the condition at the top or the bottom in the case of while or until. Now it enters the loop. And when the input box is invoked, x input value now becomes a blank. You can see the 25 value has been overwritten to a blank. And so the loop is going to continue running while the input box is empty. Okay, and I'm going to prove it to you. If I run this now, you see, you have to enter some value. Okay, if I don't enter a value, it's not allowing me to exit the loop. So I have to enter some value, maybe 30, and then the loop stops, right? So you could see that in the first case, when I had the while at the top, we're not even able to enter the loop. But in the second instant, when I have the while at the bottom, we're able to enter the loop. Why are we able to enter the loop? Because we don't have the condition that stops us from entering the loop. So we enter the loop. The 25 value was overwritten by this input box value, which is basically a blank, right? Remember, a variable changes, right? A variable changes. It has the ability to change its value. So initially it was 25, then it becomes a blank, and it's going to continue running while it's blank or empty. Okay, so that's what I wanted to point out, that the position of the while or until can sometimes significantly influence the code. Okay, depending on where the placement is, either at the top or at the bottom. Okay, so you can have it placed on either the top or bottom depending on your need. Okay guys, that's about it. I'll see you in the next lecture.